You ever notice how the smartest person in the room is sometimes the one who can't find their keys? Not the one with the sharpest answers. Not the one who remembers every name at the party. The one who seems elsewhere. And here's the thing, there's a psychological reason for that, and it completely changes how you think about intelligence. Let me describe someone real quick. They forget birthdays. Not because they don't care, they genuinely, deeply care. They just forgot. They lose their wallet at least twice a month. They walk into a room and stand there for a full 10 seconds trying to remember why they came in. But then out of nowhere they'll recall an exact conversation from 9 years ago. Word for word. The tone, the light in the room, what you were wearing. They'll notice a pattern in something everyone else walked past 100 times. They'll solve a problem in their head before anyone else even understood what the problem was. If that felt personal, good. That means this video is for you. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because most people look at that person and think scattered, unreliable, a little lost maybe. And that person, they've probably thought the same thing about themselves. But there's a hidden pattern underneath all of this that most people never see. A pattern that explains why certain people seem absent from the world everyone else is living in and present in a world most people can't even access. And ironically, the more you try to fix this kind of mind, the more you dull the very thing that makes it extraordinary. Here's the psychology. Your brain, every brain, has a filter system. It's called selective attention, and its entire job is to decide what's worth processing and what gets discarded. Think of it like a bouncer at a club. Most of what happens in your environment never makes it past the door. The hum of the refrigerator, the color of the chair you're sitting on, the ambient noise in the background gone. Filtered. Your brain didn't think it was worth the energy. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Not everyone's filter is calibrated the same way. In most people, the filter prioritizes social information, names, faces, schedules, who said what, who's upset with whom, where you're supposed to be at 3 p.m. on Thursday. This is incredibly useful for navigating everyday life. It keeps you organized. It keeps relationships intact. It keeps you from showing up to the wrong meeting. But in a certain kind of mind, and this is the part no one talks about, the filter is tuned differently. It doesn't prioritize social logistics. It prioritizes patterns, ideas, connections between things that seem completely unrelated. The why behind things, not just the what. Your brain isn't broken. It's just running different software. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a smoke alarm in your kitchen, but instead of going off for smoke, it goes off for structural changes in the building. It can detect something shifting in the foundation before a single crack appears on the wall. Most people's alarms are perfect for everyday cooking. This alarm is built for something else entirely. It will absolutely go off when you're just making toast. It will definitely miss the thing right in front of your face, but it will catch what the other alarms never could. Here's exactly how this shows up in real life. You're at dinner with people you love. The conversation moves fast: plans, gossip, logistics, who's coming next weekend, and you're there. You're nodding, you're smiling, but somewhere inside, you've drifted. Not because you're bored, not because you don't care, but because something someone said 45 seconds ago planted a seed in your mind, and your brain quietly wandered off to follow it. Why did she phrase it that way? That's the third time this month he's deflected that topic. There's something underneath this conversation that no one's naming. And then someone says your name, and you snap back, and you laugh it off. But the thing you were following, you'll think about it at 2 a.m. You'll connect it to something from 3 years ago. You'll understand something about that dynamic that no one at that table will understand for another 2 years, if ever. The inner monologue sounds something like, focus. You're here. Pay attention. Why can't you just be present? This is why people think you're distant. This is why, and then you're gone again. You've been calling that a flaw your whole life. But here's what no one tells you. That drift, that absence, it's not a malfunction. It's your brain doing exactly what it was built to do, just not in the context the world prepared for. There's a network in your brain called the default mode network. Neuroscientists originally thought it was the brain resting, doing nothing, just idling in the background. Then they looked closer. It turns out the default mode network is one of the most metabolically expensive systems in the entire brain. When you zone out, when you drift, your brain is actually doing some of its most complex work. It's making long-range connections, synthesizing information across time, building models of how people think and why systems behave the way they do. The people who access this state most deeply and most frequently, they tend to show up in history as the ones who saw something everyone else missed, not because they were paying more attention, because they were paying attention to different things. Think about what you've been told your whole life. Pay attention, stay on task. Why do you always drift? How do you forget something so simple? You need to be more organized. You need to be more present. What if those weren't character flaws being diagnosed? What if they were just a mismatch between a mind built for depth and a world that rewards surface-level throughput? Now I want to be honest with you here, because this isn't about flattering you. Both things are true at the same time. This kind of mind can cause real problems, missed deadlines, forgotten appointments, relationships strained by the feeling that you're never fully there. The frustration, yours and everyone else's, is legitimate, and those costs are real. They are not imaginary. They are not things you can just reframe away with a YouTube video. But also the strategy your brain developed wasn't random. Somewhere along the line, your mind decided that depth was worth more than breadth. That understanding something fully was more valuable than skimming everything efficiently. That the pattern underneath the surface was more important than the surface itself. That wasn't a mistake. It was a trade-off. And most people who live inside this kind of mind have never once been told that the trade-off was reasonable, that it made sense, that they weren't simply failing at being normal. They were succeeding at being something else. So if you've spent years quietly wondering why your brain works differently, why you can lose your phone while it's in your hand but remember the exact words of a conversation from a decade ago, I want you to hear this. You're not weird. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're someone whose mind filters the world through a different lens. One that misses the small, immediate, socially expected details and catches the deep, slow, structural truths that most people will never stop long enough to see. You've probably spent a long time trying to become someone whose brain works like everyone else's. And every time you failed, you took it as evidence that something was wrong with you. But maybe the failure wasn't the problem. Maybe the goal was. Rare personalities don't ignore reality. They ignore what their brain considers irrelevant. And the world has never been particularly good at telling the difference. If something in this video hit home, that's enough. Sit with it. Let it do what it needs to do. But if you want to understand the next layer, why this kind of mind often struggles in relationships specifically, and what that's really about, I made a video on exactly that. It's linked right there. And if you want more psychology that actually speaks to how you think, not just how you're supposed to think, subscribe. I put something new up every week.